So Ridley, before we bring out some other friends, I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about the origins of Prometheus. When did this story start for you?
It's been a long time since I've done science fiction, and which didn't mean I wasn't trying, but I couldn't come across anything I thought was that was of interest to me. And I kept thinking about the very first experiences I had, which, Alien and Blade Runner, and I thought there was a genesis of a very small idea that hadn't really been examined. So I think in the press in recent months it's been talked about as having the DNA of Alien, which is a perfectly good description. But once we met and we evolved in the storytelling process and the experience with Damon across a table, which is really where all the work is done, is 6 weeks of that, of talking. The story just started to evolve and to take off into another universe. And I think that's what we've managed to pull off very successfully. And if we're lucky, maybe there'll be a second part to all of this. Because the film does leave you with some really nice, big, open questions.
So, speaking of open questions, there is this, and you just referred to it, sort of ongoing question in everybody's mind as to, is this an original film? Is it something else? And up until now, we've had to kind of play this little game, but now we're starting to show some stuff. So is there anything that you would like to show now to this audience here for perhaps the first time, so that they could have something more to talk about as opposed to asking us what the movie is?
You mean the trailer?
Yeah, maybe like, and not the trailer, and not the trailer that's been online for the last 12 hours. The actual bona fide, first official 2.5 minute long trailer of Prometheus. If you guys will please put on your glasses, we're going to show that to you now. You are a movie star. I'm also gonna pretend like we're friends. When you get an opportunity to be in an ensemble like this, when you, as opposed to having to carry an entire movie on your own, is that a relief? How is that different?
Yeah, I think even when you are if you are the lead, you can't think that way because I think there's no room for that kind of thought. It kind of muddles what you were supposed to do, and I think can kind of throw you off the track that you need to stay on just in order to tell a good story. And I think when you start thinking about things that you can't really control, and I will say though, I love being around actors, and I think that's when I'm at my best. I think there was something about this cast that really was a driving force for me to want to do it, and yeah, everyone but Michael Fassbender was really great, I have to say.
Speaking of Michael Fassbender, you play we call him a cybernetic individual, an android.
I call him a robot.
A robot named David. What's it like to play a robot? So you're a human who's playing a robot who's pretending to be a human. Is that fun? Is it more complicated? Can you just talk about that a little bit?
Well, they kind of neutralize each other out, so in the end you just sort of play it straight. No, I mean the thing, we discussed it, it wasn't like it was going to be a reveal of any sort. We were going to get the the fact that David is a robot is revealed early in the film. And then, it was just, again, the wonderful hints that Ridley sort of put my way before we started. He was like, take a look at The Servant film with Dirk Bogarde and various other things. And so, the idea that he was a butler type character, that he's there to sort of service the aircraft and the crew on it. And, then I sort of thought, well, what sort of physicality I'm going to find there. And for some reason, I thought of Greg Louganis. I don't know, early on, I thought of this guy. I always remembered him when I was younger, and I sort of see him sort of, just the way he walks before he sort of dive off the sort of diving board or high block or whatever. And I always thought there was something very funny about it to begin with, and also there was a real economy of movement, and I thought that would lend quite well to David. And then I just really wanted to have as much fun as possible with the character, and then also the question of like, okay, how much of a programming will start to program itself? So you have this robot who's supposed to respond and interact with human beings and be able to sort of understand human beings. Would that start to manifest itself in other forms? Would he start to develop his own personality traits, an ego, insecurities, all the fun human stuff? And then it was just sort of about, you know, playing around with that really, and seeing sort of how much for the audience when they're watching him, they're like, is this guy taking the piss, or is he for real? So that was kind of what we were playing with, I think.
Do robots piss? Does
They do, but only to make humans feel more comfortable around them.
Yes. Good answer. Ridley, can you? This is you shot this movie in 3D. It's not a conversion. You shot it in 3D.
Thank you.
This is the first time you've done a movie in that format.
Yeah.
What was it like, and are you happy with the way it turned out?
Oh, it's absolutely beautiful. I mean, see some of it up there. But you know, it's also a great cinematographer I was working with called Darius Wolski that I had a great time with, and he was a very nice partnership in the whole process. And you know, because I tend to come from the visual side anyway in my career, that I always got the actors last, and actors always used to complain about. I never talked to them initially. In fact, the very first Alien, they were all complaining. I never actually talked to them. You know, 20 years on, I said, that's how I wanted it. Okay, I wanted them to feel insecure. Well, actually, I was scared to death of talking to them. No, so Darius is a great partner, and the film looks marvelous, yeah. But that said, I should also mention all the departments that go into the making of a film like this, which is, you know, Arthur Max is a great production designer, you know, Jati Yates, costume, you know, all the special effects people involved in that, and the whole shebang, a very talented group of people. So it looks absolutely beautiful.
Awesome. Do we have the Twitter questions yet? They're still working on them. Okay, I'll just tap dance a little while longer. There they are. Thanks so much. We're getting questions on Twitter. Have you heard of it? It's one of those things on the internets, from what I understand. This is from @NickWilliams4. Within the sci-fi horror genre, do the advances in CG affect how you work, Ridley? So the idea that when you made, obviously, the original film, now you can do all this stuff in CG. Do you? Is it tempting? How do you shoot the movie?
The original Alien was a very tall guy. He's like, I'd never seen a basketball height person before 30 years ago, who was standing in a pub in Soho called Balaji. He was, I think, 7'6" or 7'7", and I was too embarrassed to go over there and said, "Do you want to be in movies?" So I sent somebody else over to go and said, "Do you want to be in this movie?" And he looked at me like I was very strange, okay? But he ended up being the guy in the rubber suit, because there's no other way of doing that then. It's a man in a rubber suit. And the big engineering job is, how the hell do I put that head on him without breaking his neck? Because it doesn't matter how lightweight you make that box, it's still heavy. Digitally today, you can do pretty well anything you want. That said, it's not cheaper, it's more expensive. It's more elongated. And what I've learned from this film, because I'll certainly do another science fiction film as soon as possible, because it was really refreshing, it was great. I've learned about digital animation, and the more you digitally animate initially, you can get a cost factor down, and more than that, you can see exactly how it's going to play out. Digitally, you can do anything you want. But in a funny kind of way, that makes the challenge even more difficult, because it's like saying, we're almost action filmed out, we're almost science fiction filmed out, and yet we still keep going. So one of the biggest, most trickiest things of all, the most baseline question is, how original are you going to be? Otherwise, it's just more of the same. So that's the challenge.